You think you're seeing the world as it is. You're not. You're seeing a version your brain approved seconds ago. Right now, this moment, your mind is cutting, muting, and rewriting reality in real time. And you never gave it permission. If you could see the raw, unfiltered world for even 10 seconds, you'd panic. That's not a metaphor. That's a warning. Your brain doesn't exist to tell you the truth. It exists to keep you alive. And those two goals are not the same. What you experience as reality is not reality. It's a story, a compressed, edited, simplified survival file. Your brain decides what matters, what doesn't, and what you're allowed to notice, before you're even aware there was a choice. That's why this matters, because every decision you've ever made was based on a version of the world that was already altered. Your eyes don't send reality to your brain. They send chaos, light, noise, movement, color, too much information to survive. So your brain does something terrifyingly efficient. It deletes most of it. You don't see what's there. You see what your brain predicts should be there. That's why you don't notice your nose. That's why you miss obvious details. That's why eyewitnesses are wrong. Your brain fills gaps faster than you can question them. You don't live in the present. You live in a prediction. Here's the uncomfortable part. Your brain edits reality before consciousness turns on. By the time you think, I see, the edit is already finished. Psychologists call this predictive processing. Your brain guesses first, then checks reality, only enough to avoid disaster. Accuracy is optional. Survival is not. That's why fear feels louder than logic. That's why negative memories stick harder. That's why first impressions are almost impossible to undo. Your brain is biased toward danger, not truth. Think about this. Two people witness the same moment. One feels insulted. The other feels nothing. Same words, same tone, different realities. Because the brain doesn't ask, what happened? It asks, what does this mean to me? And meaning is where the editing gets brutal. Your past trains your brain how to edit the present. If you've been rejected before, your brain highlights rejection everywhere. If you've been hurt before, your brain lowers trust by default. If you grew up unseen, your brain deletes your own needs first. This isn't weakness. It's pattern recognition taken too far. Your brain would rather be wrong in a familiar way than right in an unfamiliar one. Here's where it escalates. Once your brain edits reality, it defends the edit. Contradicting information feels threatening, not intellectually, biologically. That's why arguments feel personal. That's why changing your mind feels painful. That's why being wrong feels like an attack. Your brain hears you're mistaken as you're unsafe, so it doubles down. It filters harder. It edits more aggressively. And slowly, your reality shrinks. This is how people get trapped inside their own perception. Not because they're stupid, because their brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do. Protect the system, minimize uncertainty, avoid cognitive pain. Truth becomes optional. Now listen carefully. Your emotions are not reactions to reality. They are reactions to your brain's edited version of reality. That anxiety you feel, that anger, that sudden certainty, they're not proof. They're feedback from a filter you didn't design. You don't respond to events. You respond to interpretations. And most of those interpretations were made before you were even aware something happened. Here's the moment people don't like. If your brain edits reality, then your confidence doesn't mean you're right. It means your edit feels complete. That's dangerous, because the most convincing thoughts are often the most filtered ones. Certainty is not clarity. It's compression. Now I want you to notice something. When was the last time you were absolutely sure and later realized you were wrong? In that moment, reality didn't change. The edit did. Your brain quietly swapped the file and acted like it was always that way. That's how seamless this is. Here's the mirror. Right now, as you're listening, your brain is deciding what parts of this to accept and what parts to quietly discard. Not because they're false, but because they threaten how you see yourself. You might feel resistance, discomfort, a subtle urge to scroll. That's the edit happening. You think you want truth, but what you really want is coherence, a story where you make sense. So your brain edits reality to protect the character called you. Not evil, not broken, just human. And here's the final shift. You will never experience unfiltered reality. No one does. The power is not in removing the edit. It's in noticing when it's happening. The moment you pause and think, what else could this be? The edit weakens. Not gone, just visible. And once you can see the filter, you stop mistaking it for the world. Reality doesn't disappear when the edit cracks. It expands. And that expansion, it's uncomfortable, quiet, and impossible to unsee. That's the price of awareness. And once you've paid it, you'll never fully trust your first perception again, which is exactly the point.